Is it beneficial or detrimental to have a community of other practitioners around yourself? We had this question come up during the last week because recently Ajahn had been talking about the physical external conditions that are favorable to practicing well. So notably having a teacher, a guide, and not living in society, that is, not living surrounded by people who don't practice. And another condition that can be favorable is having a group of practitioners around yourself, people who all have the same aim. But it's not quite as simple as that, because having other people around can also be harmful for your practice. If those people who are around you just pull you out of concentration, out of mindfulness, in other words, if there is constantly talk about worldly subjects, whether that's about jobs, about politics, about whatever kind of worldly subject that is not bringing you up, that is not leading towards your aim. And so because of this, like if you have a group of practitioners, but this group of practitioners do not talk about Dhamma amongst themselves, if they do not all take it as their responsibility to bring each other up, to serve each other by either talking about what is leading to the goal, or just even being a good example for each other, then it's not helpful if they are not doing that. So having a group of practitioners around doesn't in itself help you to practice better. What is helpful is when those people act like practitioners of Dhamma. And it's a point that's good to remember, that being a practitioner of Dhamma is not like a fixed title we can give to ourselves. It's not an extra identity that we take on once we start practicing. No, being a practitioner is decided each moment in how we act. How we act in our thoughts, how we act in our speech, how we act with our physical body. It's decided in whether we give up kilesa or whether we keep them. So if you have a group of people doing this, if you are practicing in a group with others who have the same aim, then it can be something very positive and very helpful for many reasons. Firstly, you're not going to be constantly surrounded by like useless chatter or immoral talking or gossip or wrong speech, which brings the mind out of the practice. Secondly, you have access to support in your practice from people who understand what you're doing and understand your aim and have the same aim themselves. Thirdly, having others around is an opportunity to practice selflessness, an opportunity to give to others who are moral and who are working on the path of wisdom, which we would not be able to do if we were not in a community of practitioners, because outside of people practicing the teaching of the Buddha, to whom would we give? Who could we serve? Ajahn often talks about the example of the two acrobats that the Buddha gives at one point in regard to this, that there is two acrobats, one who stands on the shoulders of the other, and the one who is standing on the shoulders of the other says to him, "If you pay attention to not throw me off balance, and if I pay attention to not throw you off balance, then both of us will be stable, we will not fall, and we will make money." And the one who is standing on the bottom says, "No, if I take care to keep my own balance, and you take care to keep your own balance, then we will both be stable." And so the point is that both of them were correct, and it kind of comes down to the same thing, because in the Buddha's teaching, in Buddhism, when you help others, you help yourself, developing your qualities. And on the other hand too, when you work on yourself, when you develop qualities and you practice to remove selfishness, then by default you help everyone who is around you. Because anyone will benefit from somebody who is selfless, who is kind, who is compassionate, who is not lazy, not stubborn, not proud. And in particular, in regard to this subject, to take it a little bit further, when you help others by talking to them about the practice, whether by sharing a teaching you have just heard, or sharing something you observed yourself, or asking them, "What did you observe, or what did you see today? How was your practice today?" Then you help yourself too. So in conclusion, the benefit of having a group of practitioners or a community is not just in the fact of having these people around. It's only when everyone takes responsibility in creating a sangha, creating a community that is supportive of one another and that leads each other up, that pushes one another upwards in the aim, upwards in the goal. It's not something that can be made as a fixed rule. It's something that everybody has to take responsibility for. Like continually asking themselves, okay, how can I be a good sangha for the people around me? How can I bring the one who is in front of me up? How can I say something that will be a gift to them in Dhamma? How can I serve them? And also, finally, just to mention as well that the practice always ultimately comes down to one's own personal responsibility. So, while we can take note that there are certain things that are favorable to practice, like having others who are talking about Dhamma or who are practicing well and being an example for you, at the same time, we cannot depend on others. We cannot depend on our community or what is our surroundings. And we cannot blame our surroundings or the people around us if our own practice is no good, because that is always ultimately our own responsibility.